Hello.
Hi, everybody.
If you heard me say that, Danny DeVito didn't actually die last week. I was just saying things.
Yeah, Danny DeVito's immortal, just like
Betty White.
Betty White and the Queen.
You know, my brother-in-law says that he is invincible as long as Betty White is alive.
Danny DeVito?
No, Betty White.
Ah, I see. Oh, your brother-in-law is invincible as
yeah.
long as she's alive.
And he's in the military. He's like, I cannot die while she is alive.
Oh, interesting.
And then
So he retires as soon as she dies.
No. He's capable of achieving death
After she dies.
after.
Oh, so it's like in the
It's like having your totem of undying in Minecraft.
yeah, it's like you have infinite respawns as long as somebody on your team is still alive. It's rebirth rules.
Yeah.
Betty White's still going to be alive with that immortal snail and me.
What?
Riley knows what I'm talking about. He knows the snail lore.
What the hell are you talking about? Explain. Explain yourself, sir.
All right. So there was this post or video like years ago, and it was you get $1 million and you become immortal, but there's a snail that kills you if it touches you.
And it's
always coming for you, and you can move, and it moves at the normal speed of a snail. So
if
you can.
If it ever catches you,
if it ever catches you and touches you, you die.
Yeah.
So like, there's been so many, like that was years and years ago, and there've been a ton of memes coming out about like a giant iron dome that was found with nothing but a snail inside, and they're like, it started, and there've been so many lore memes coming out about like you and the snail after the post-apocalyptic era, and you're like, it was friendship all along, or like it's just like a video of like two people with like pistols out with tears in their eyes, and it's like me and the snail finally coming to tears after the rest of the world has crumbled to dust.
I never heard that. That's fantastic.
It's beautiful.
I do like the idea that somebody would stay like they would calculate their time enough ahead of the snail, so they'd just be tempting fate constantly. Like they always time themselves out that they're 8 hours away from the snail at his own pace, so they could get sleep, and then they just stay like 3 steps ahead of him always.
Weld the snail in a tungsten cube, launch him into space, done.
As long as you don't touch him.
Have someone else.
You hire someone to do it.
Hire someone to do it.
Oh yeah, because it's your snail.
Well, it's not your snail.
Like they don't die if they touch it.
No, they don't. Well, yeah, it's your you're the only one who dies if it touches you, unless that's other snail lore that's not necessarily determined. Maybe it does kill anyone it touches, but it only goes after you. So if anyone touches it, they die.
Maybe it's like maybe.
You heard it here. New snail lore just dropped.
Well,
Is that your new mixtape? Snail lore?
Snail lore.
Sing me a couple bars for your new mixtape.
we're the snail historians.
A couple bars.
Yeah.
A couple bars.
As a bard.
Get back to me on that.
Okay.
Wicca.
We're putting Caleb on the spot for that one. There used to be this great podcast / game show called On the Spot. Back when Rooster Teeth was actually fun to watch.
What did I do with that other Mountain Dew?
Haha.
Did you grab it?
I have one. You handed me
I
one.
grabbed 2.
Yeah, there's one on the counter there right behind you. I believe that beam is blocking your vision.
The beam? I do see it on the counter. What the hell just happened?
We just found his Mountain Dew.
Riley?
I don't know.
What the hell are you doing?
That was the wrong.
That was
Riley.
not the right button.
Was it?
That was, I mean, unless you meant to press that button.
That's what I did. We
We have a cat joining the podcast.
Ember.
Ember, what do you have to say to all the people?
Meow.
That was just a cat girl.
Meow.
I hate that. If you're going to do it, say it like Gary. Meow.
Meow.
Gary's the snail.
Oh, no.
He's at the bottom of the ocean.
Gary, come home.
Have somebody else drop the snail off in the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Oh, it'll get out.
He'll come
It's
find
just
you.
a matter of time. He's got all of eternity to get you ways.
So Betty White's snail hasn't caught up to her. So are you trying to say that, like, your snail takes roughly around 60 to 80 years to come get you? depending on its starting location.
I feel like 80 years is probably way too quick for a snail to get all the way around the globe.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're
I mean,
slow.
I don't know. They're very slow, and they'd
They
also
also
probably.
have a lot of like terrain differences.
Yeah, I don't know if they have to. Depending on the type of snail, it might not be able to handle the pressure / lack of oxygen in some.
Have y'all ever
oceanic
seen
and salt water, depending on the type of snail?
Rides on the back.
Have y'all ever
Yeah, it's
seen
gonna have to get on a animal or a
whale.
boat.
of Monsters and Men music videos online? How they're like
I don't remember.
Oh, they're kind of based on like the scene from Lion King where they're walking across the log and he gets older as he goes along. I want a video with epic music and it's just a snail.
A snail with a human walking in front of it. They're just both getting older. The snail gets a massive white beard.
Some Kung Fu Panda shit. Anybody else remember that one episode of SpongeBob where they all turned into snails? That fucked me up as a kid.
I feel like I do, but I don't.
It's an
been a
early
long time.
episode. He accidentally takes some of Gary's medicine
For
or
the
something.
whole episode?
The
they're
whole
snails?
episode, he slowly turns into a snail.
Why is this evading me? I've seen all of SpongeBob so many times.
It's a really weird episode, dude. It's bizarre. It's almost like horror-esque, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and he's like slowly like I'm fine, and then slowly like his eye stalks grow out. It's really weird. It's a very, very bizarre episode.
Sounds like another episode where the animators and producers were on drugs.
I mean, that was every episode before 2001.
That's fair.
Like,
R.I.P. classic SpongeBob.
Best SpongeBob.
honestly. Okay, what are we talking about today, gentlemen?
I mean, I think we're
Your
gonna.
mom.
I mean, potentially, because we are talking about how ADHD affected your life, and she's half of what gave you ADHD.
SpongeBob?
Your mother, but SpongeBob.
Oh.
SpongeBob also probably contributed to my ADHD. I didn't watch it that much as a young child, so maybe not. But I could see
I
it
definitely
contributing to people's ADHD.
I had SpongeBob. painted
Well,
on the walls
okay,
everywhere.
so maybe we should talk about this because it's kind of a PowerPoint to the whole thing. So we did ADHD questions. What, like episode 2 or 3? It's been a while since we've done them.
Oh, you mean like the if this applies to you and you meet
You might
a certain
have
amount of these
ADHD.
criteria, there's a decent chance you have
well,
ADHD.
and then we just did like a list online or something like that. And it was like way back, and that kind of inspired me. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. To actually go and seek out like how does one even get diagnosed for ADHD? And it's like it was very daunting to me for many years because I've thought it for a long time. Like there might be some sort of attention deficit disorder of some kind, like ADD, ADHD. There's other ones in there too. And I wanted to look into them. And that kind of inspired me. I was like, okay, so I'm just going to like look around to see how you do it. And I started looking like online and stuff. So I wanted to talk about like my journey with that. So after that episode, honestly, I just asked my therapist, like, how does one even get diagnosed with ADHD? And I think this is a big deal. And we didn't necessarily look over it right away. I think, you know, for the timeline of the podcast, I think like by episode 5 and 6, we still hadn't really discussed it. I'd mentioned that it might have been a thing. And even back in
Oh, it's in our group chat on Messenger. That's where it is. It's
In-
not a Google Doc.
in 2019, when I had first started going to get therapy, I'd mentioned to that therapist that I may have some ADHD tendencies. He said, "Yep, you have some tendencies," and then we never saw each other again. So it never got like really looked into. And so I sent an email to my therapist maybe 2 months ago or something like that, and I said, "I think I watched this video." And I'll let you guys know the channel here at the end of when I'm done talking because it's been a really great resource for me. Like signs that you may have ADHD. And I sent it to my therapist and I was like, I really think this is something that we need to talk about. And so the next session that we went into, she brought the checklist from the DCM-5. The DCM-5 is how they diagnose ADHD and some other like attention deficit disorders. It's like a book that therapists get and it has like all the if this then that. It's like a build your own adventure book for attention deficit. And there's this whole checklist that they have in the book. And we started listing them out and I scored 16 out of 18 of the potential that have ADHD of like if there's it's separated into sections like not likely, somewhat likely. And this is like, how often do you deal with this on a daily basis is the question. And like very likely, and then pretty much all the time, are in gray. And if you have it in the gray, then it is a symptom. It's essentially a symptom. And I had 16 out of 18 in the gray. And so we started walking through the process. And so the thing that I really wanted to touch on about ADHD today was it is not as hard to get diagnosed as you think it is, but there's not a whole lot of information out there for you to find out how to do that, because your initial thought for all of it is that you need to go to a psychiatrist, or at least it was for me. And so it is much easier to get a counselor/therapist than it is to get a psychiatrist. There's a lot less of them. You need a PhD. So I was talking to her, and we did that all through, and she's like, yep, this makes a whole lot of sense. I can't believe I didn't even think to like cover that earlier, because I mean, it makes a lot of sense for your life. As she said, the reason she didn't think of it is she hasn't dealt with a whole lot of adults with ADHD. She deals with kids with it all the time. So we walk through the process, and literally all I have to do at this point is talk to my family doctor, show him the checklist that we did, and she might recommend me to a psychiatrist if she can't determine herself, my regular family doctor, that it's definitive. But she said, yeah, your doctor's pretty much going to be able to just prescribe you from there. So really, like, it's not as hard as you think. You can really just go to your family doctor and they can give you that stuff, run you through the tests and things like that. But and they might suggest that you go to a counselor or psychiatrist, but it's got to be like a family doctor or psychiatrist that actually recommends the drugs for you. It's going to be stimulants of some kind. And, you know, just like anxiety meds or depression meds or anything like that, there's a bunch of different options too. Like, I think there's a lot of stigma against Adderall. But that helps a lot of people. And that's the most common one that they're going to start you off with. But there's tons and tons of stimulants out there. And it's been, after getting that it was essentially a diagnosis from a counselor, which can't actually, quote unquote, diagnose you from anything, because they don't have the credentials to do that. But they can recommend you a diagnosis to your family doctor or your psychiatrist or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's been an interesting journey for me so far. It's funny, as soon as we got done with that and we had all the steps that we needed to go through, and therapy has changed since then too. You know, she wasn't really keen on starting me on EMDR training, if you guys know what that is.
Yeah.
EMDR, I don't exactly, electro...
Yeah.
So essentially what EMDR is, for people that don't know that are listening to the podcast, it's a type of therapy that has to do with reprogramming your brain for old memories that you don't even realize are still affecting you, like subconscious memories that you don't think about but still have an effect on how your mind processes things and the defenses that you have and things like that. So they do it through shock paddles. They don't actually shock you, but they have a machine that slowly buzzes and you hold one in each hand, and it buzzes for each hand, and it helps your brain. And there's like a whole process to it, and I've never been through it fully myself. It's
almost like really, really mild scientific hypnotism.
Yes. Yeah. It takes the concept of hypnotism.
I was pretty close to someone who did it for a while.
Yeah. It's really good for you, but it can be incredibly emotional depending on how like traumatic the events that it brings up. So they have to do a lot of like, we've been doing like pre-work in therapy. You have to do pre-work, because if you end up, because it doesn't just end when the therapy session ends. You do a lot of background processing in your subconscious for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards. Like you'll do a session of EMDR, but you probably will not do another one for the next couple sessions. And you process that memory in the background, and you have to be able to put that away if you need to. Like just not think about it. And you have to do the practice beforehand for that. But we weren't even considering that until ADHD was in the mix. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, it was funny. As soon as therapy ended, that session, how much more patient I was with myself, with like forgetting things and
not getting so mad at yourself.
yeah, being spacey and things like that. Like I have an answer to all of that now. And like a lot of times finding answers for people is not always exactly what everybody wants. Sometimes they don't need them. But for me especially, having a name to something really helps. It provides a structure to it. Because another thing that I've been dealing with is I have crazy need for consent for a lot of things, and I feel like I can't work on something, or it's just a character flaw unless I have a name for it, and therefore the consents that come with that.
Yeah.
So having a name for it allows me to like, okay, now I can start working on that stuff, and that's what led me to find this YouTube channel that I've been watching a lot of lately. It's called How to ADHD. What is her name? I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she has been running this channel for about 5 years now. And she's an adult that has dealt with ADHD for a very long time. And she has a very, very bad case of it. You know, it's kind of like all mental health issues where it's on a sliding scale. You know, you have different stuff. And then there's people who, like, even though they may not realize that they have the problem, may have dealt sometimes, most of the time, unhealthy ways of dealing with it just because they've needed to in their life. Like if your parents didn't always forced you to do stuff. That was the case for me. My parents were, I don't think they were trying to be malicious or anything, but subconsciously they were very like not very patient with me growing up, like you know, doing schoolwork and not getting stuff done until last minute and forgetting about stuff all the time. Despite them also both having about the same scores as I did on that DCM-5 test, because they both took it. Yeah, they were both, I think my dad was 17 out of 18 and my mom was like 15. So they were like right around the same area.
Did they go with you or something to get that test?
No, you can find it online. Yeah,
is that the one list that we went through?
That one was like a numbed down version of it. The DCM-5 is a lot more technical, a lot more scientific about things than that quiz that we did was. But it's very... I would say that the questions are similar for sure. Another thing about ADHD that I went in with before, you know, doing my research that I've been doing in the last couple months, was that it's something that can be developed over time. It is not.
No.
It is fully genetic.
It's fully genetic. It can be like the tendencies and severities of it can be influenced based on what practices you do consciously or unconsciously, but actually having it is definitely genetic.
Yeah, you can develop tendencies away from it, and you can the How to ADHD channel puts it as you develop these practices and things to get past it, but it never really truly goes away. Like you can make it worse. But, you know, like everyone's saying that phones make it worse. I don't know. Yeah.
Probably.
They can to some extent, depending on how you use them.
I mean, I would guess like scrolling and swiping, just all that information that you're going by so quick that you're never fully processing. I mean, I don't think it's good for people without ADHD either, ideally.
Right.
But I think with people with ADHD, it could be even more like confusing, not on a conscious level.
Yeah, that's true. To an extent, but it's not the phones that make ADHD.
No.
And that's the common consensus right now. So another thing about, I need to get back on track. I'm all over the place. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. So with this channel, How to ADHD, she goes through different concepts of ADHD and breaks them down in layman's terms. She's in her 30s and still has a relatively like bad case, to the point where she has to set up her house in a certain way, or else she'll get distracted by anything, and has a very hard time keeping things clean. The thing with ADHD, that's another thing that's super interesting that I learned from that channel is, it's not that you can't enjoy yourself, it's that you're flooding your brain. The only way you can is your dopamine receptors don't work in the same way as a neurotypical brain. So most of the time when you do something enjoyable, you get a hit of dopamine, right? And for neurotypical brains, they have receptors that pick up on that dopamine, feed it into the proper places, and that's it. You know that one single thing is enough dopamine. With ADHD, your dopamine receptors are limited. and they don't work the same way. They actually don't activate at all unless you flood them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do something that engages all of your attention instead of just a little bit of it, and it has to be a lot of it at the same time, which is why people with ADHD are so prone to addiction and things like
And depression.
addiction, depression, anxiety. You get the anxiety and depression from the lack of dopamine.
Yeah.
And the addiction from the over flooding of dopamine that happens. I definitely have found that in the last year. The addiction tendencies, I didn't realize how bad they could be just from that sort of thing. But that's why people with ADHD swing towards video games rather than movies or something like that. Because a movie is only going to hold your attention so long, and it doesn't require any input from your hands or anything. And so, that's why, with me, a lot of times when I'm watching movies, I'm on my phone too.
Yeah.
And I'm not really paying attention to either of them. It's just everything is engaged. That's why video games are better for people with ADHD. Well, not better, but that's why they gravitate towards
More
them.
satisfying.
Yeah, it's more satisfying because it's one single thing that you are watching and doing with your hands at the same time.
Yeah.
And then games are built specifically around giving you hits of dopamine on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah.
I mean, they call it the 30-second gameplay loop for a reason. That's how they design games. Yeah, so that's been an interesting fact. And then she goes really in depth with stuff. If you're going to try multitasking as ADHD, because you would think if you have ADHD, because your attention is all over the place, you would be better at multitasking. It does not work. With ADHD, it does not work right. Because your attention is drawn in any which direction, but it does not engage everything. So, if you're to properly multitask, you would need all of your attention to be able to switch quickly.
I'm really good at high stress, high pressure multitasking. I'm really bad at generic trying to do multiple things at once that just need to get done because they need to get done multitasking.
I have an answer to this. There is a different side to ADHD that is less known, but it's definitely known in the proper communities for mental health and stuff, and it's called hyperfocus.
Yeah.
So whenever the thing with ADHD that we have is kind of a quote unquote superpower is hyperfocus is not something that people normally have access to.
Yeah.
If your brain finds it pressing enough. So this is why people with ADHD do super well on tests, even though they only started studying the night before.
Mm-hmm.
If you find something pressing enough, all of your mental and physical energy will be poured into hyper focusing on something.
Yeah.
I remember a very specific instance in my life where we had this was when I worked at Arby's 7-8 years ago, and we had a particularly difficult day, and it felt pressing enough to me that I was just busting ass, doing super well. I was running the drive-thru and the fryers by myself.
Did you feel a sense of peace and satisfaction amidst the chaos?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought so.
Absolutely. And my boss was like, "Okay, we need you to do that all the time." And I was like, "I don't know how, I don't have access to that all the time." Hyperfocus is not something that you can just you can find ways to better trigger it, but it doesn't, you can't, it's not always going to work exactly as you expect it to.
I'm usually better at triggering it if I think it's going to be observed, which isn't necessarily a net positive thing. You shouldn't necessarily be doing things just so that people view you as better. It's better to do things because you want to be better for you. But when I'm working in the kitchen up at camp sometimes, and the dishes are way behind, I'll be using one hand to run the clean side and one hand to run the dirty side without ever touching the two. And I've got the machine running nonstop, but I know people are watching me. I won't necessarily be doing that if I'm there by myself.
I have such guilt in that specific area because of something I heard way back in the day. You remember the Focus on the Family podcast thing they used to do?
Yeah.
Dobson's concept of your character is built by when people aren't watching. I have so much guilt related to that because I took it to heart, and it's very, very difficult to be consistent when nobody is watching.
Yeah.
Which, at least to me,
which is not necessarily incorrect, but it can lead towards that unhealthy amount of guilt towards it for sure.
Yeah, and I feel a lot of times when you make self-help books or concepts like that, it's very difficult to keep everybody in mind, especially when that concept was made like late 90s, early 2000s or something like that.
Yeah.
And neuroatypical minds were not nearly as understood as they are now.
You could argue that that concept was made thousands and thousands of years ago. There's plenty of religious texts that have just referring to what you're doing when you're like doing things not to be seen, but to do them.
Right. Yeah.
I always understood that as like more of like an integrity thing.
Yeah.
Doing things without having to be told and without anybody watching.
Yes, but it's also very difficult when like so many other things that you do might be considered wrong or worthy of guilt. So it's very difficult to have that concept. Like I feel like holding that concept as the most important thing in your mind is dangerous if you are not looking at it from a completely logical standpoint with no emotion.
Yeah.
Like, this is bad, this is good. If you can't accurately place those two apart, it's incredibly difficult to hold that as a main concept to live by.
I think the way it should be interpreted is what you value highest yourself should be what you're shooting for, even if you think other people are going to view it as wrong. Also, the other direction, if you think someone's going to view something as right, that shouldn't be the reason you do it, just because someone else is going to view it as right.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
So like, you have your own hierarchy of value.
Okay.
That you determine yourself, not based on what you think other people will want you to do. And if you're following your own hierarchy of value, you'll place some things at a higher priority than others. You'll think doing this thing in this situation is more important than doing this thing, regardless of whether or not other people will view it as the incorrect or correct thing. I think that's more what it's saying.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean,
if interpreted properly.
Yeah, but like I was saying, it is hard to interpret that properly.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, without adding negative emotions about yourself into it. Especially if your self-esteem is not decent, which mine wasn't as a kid, for sure. But getting back to the How to ADHD, I really suggest anybody who's curious if they have attention deficit issues to take a look at that channel, and it'll open your mind to a lot of the concepts that deal with like attention issues and things like that. Not just ADHD, but ADD and other ones. And she has ideas for like time management. Like, another thing that they explained is you have something in your brain that acts the same way that RAM does in a computer, like active processing memory. Like, how many things can you remember in that short term when you need to remember them? So when you have ADHD, most people, like, for example, most people are going to have like 5 slots of things that they can remember. With ADHD, the reason you're bouncing around so much is because you only have 3. So, like when somebody asks you a question, that's one. The contents of the questions could be another one. So if it's like a multiple choice question,
like a more than one sentence text.
Yeah, exactly. It's like A, B, C, D, and then in multiple sentences. It's like, or imagine if somebody had two different processes that they were trying to get across in a text. Like, you've already forgotten the first one. Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
I know that's a complaint between guys and girls a lot, and I don't know if it's entirely attributed to ADHD, though guys, as far as I'm aware, guys generally have a significantly higher rate of ADHDs than girls. Is that correct as far as you know?
Not necessarily, but they are very different in guys and girls.
Okay,
so girls
that
come
could
across differently. That
could be it then.
I am not an expert in women's ADHD because I'm still trying to figure out my own.
Right.
I know that they are different. I cannot tell you the differences exactly.
I know in my own life and what I've seen is that a lot of girls complain that like they'll send a very long, in-depth text message and guys will respond to only 1 or 2 points in there. And what you were just saying could contribute to that like we're reading this whole thing, but we only have room. Okay, I got a text. I have to respond to that. That's one. And then maybe 1 or 2 questions in there in that paragraph we got takes up the rest of it.
It's also a challenge when you're dealing with, it's a challenge both ways when you're dealing with a neuroatypical and a neurotypical. And then if it's 2 neuroatypicals, like, I know for me, when if I ask somebody a question and they don't respond to that question, I'm like, what is wrong? Did I say something wrong? Did you not want to answer the question? And a lot of times it's just that they only processed the one thing and forgot about the other. And it really doesn't have anything to do with me. But on the other side of that, you know, I'm sure sometimes my responses are like way too long-winded and I read way too much into them. Rarely do I have the problem where I spend too little information over text.
Interesting.
But that's something I've always known about myself.
Yeah.
But usually I will take something way deeper than they intended the question to be, and I will respond with too much information to the point where it's overloading and confusing to people. So, so with that, I want to leave you with guys with like look into the How to ADHD channel. I think it's really good. She also has a TED Talk, which kind of sells her whole story, which I thought was really cool. Was like, you know, her parents were on top of it right away, which is uncommon a lot of times for kids. You know, they either go undiagnosed or unmedicated or anything like that. But her parents were on top of it from like 6th grade on. But she had multiple significant others over time that said, oh, this stuff doesn't work and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, because of the anxiety that comes with ADHD, because another thing is it's very rare for somebody to just have ADHD. Mm-hmm. It's more likely that you might have ADHD and Asperger's, or ADHD and some sort of anxiety disorder, like an actual chemical imbalance. So, you know, there's certain things cognizant issues that can lead you to being more subservient or, you know, listening to people. Mm-hmm. Codependent is the word I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Lead you to being more codependent. So she's had significant others over time that led her into being codependent, and she stopped taking her medications, and it ruined her life over her 20s. So, that TED Talk is really good to listen to too. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about it. I know that's all over the place, and I wish I would have come with a little bit more information. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more at some point, because I want to bring the DCM-5 test here too. Riley, the people in the podcast can't hear you raising your hand.
I know.
Riley has a question.
Oh, no, I don't have a question.
Riley has a statement.
I was gonna try and move on to the next subject.
Riley has a topic change.
That's what I was setting you up for.
I know.
He was going for the transfer.
That was the visual cue that I was.
Riley,
you were cutting it off.
He was going and
scene
go.
end.
Scene end. All right.
So more on ADHD.
God. All right. So a couple weeks. Can you guys hear me? All right. I feel like I'm super quiet.
Just move your mouth a little bit closer to the mic there.
Check the values on the headphones. It should be 1, 2, and 3. Make sure they're all at half.
I'm at half.
Point the mic upwards maybe a little bit more.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Also make sure that I think he's on number 2.
I'm on 3. I'm on 2 on the headphones.
These are all up all the way. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
They're up all the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure
not quite all the way.
Yeah, slide Riley's just a little higher.
Which one's Riley's?
3. I'm all the way up now.
All right.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's a little louder.
I was just... I was hearing
You also keep turning your head away from the microphone, Riley.
I'm sorry.
I believe I can fly.
Okay, so... I'm not used to doing this on the couch.
That's fair. We're chilling out today. There's also a dog at your butt.
Yeah. All right, so a couple weeks ago, the group of us came up with some topics.
Well, like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's actually almost a whole month ago.
Yep.
So we had a couple different questions. I sent it in the group chat if you guys want to pull them up too as screenshots so you can see them.
Was that the text that had the business? Would you start? What role would you play in history? All right.
Yeah. So I didn't know which ones we covered. Did we cover any of those before, Sam? I know we talked about doing some of them.
I don't think we ever actually did any of them.
Okay. Caleb.
You was popping, my dude.
In ancient times, what role would
Court
you play?
jester.
Why?
Because I would be
that's
able to...
That's also a sign of ADHD, is answering questions before they're finished.
I answer questions before they're finished all the time.
Because your brain has already processed the end of the question.
Correct. All right. What role would I be in? Why? Jester, because I'd be allowed to make fun of the king. And I would do so
just watched
tastefully.
a whole video on that.
I would do so tastefully.
You had to, or else you would also get beheaded.
Yes, you can still get beheaded. It wasn't just a no rules. It wasn't just like you could do whatever you wanted. But
you still had to be tasteful with it.
You're the comical relief.
Comic relief. I get to live in the castle. That'd be pretty sweet.
They also got given stuff all the time.
all the time.
Like land and stuff, just for being funny.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would get my comedy routine down in ancient times.
I would also. Would you be the ancient Bill Burr?
And I'm like, hey. No, I don't have a Bill Burr. I have the Bill Burr voice in my head, but I don't have a sentence to say in my head that's Bill Burr right now.
His voice is always like just one octave higher than you expect it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Think of a sentence, Caleb. Think of a Bill Burr sentence. The king's going to have your head for this. Come on.
All right, Sam. While he's thinking of that, go ahead, Sam. What would you do and why?
This is gonna be such a corny, stupid answer, but like, just because of my innate desire to constantly learn things and not just the same thing over and over, I really think like I would be some sort of like wandering, not adventure, like that's more of a D&D thing, but like some sort of traveler with just a general skill, like almost like a wandering handyman. Like,
what if you were like a wandering trader? You just had a cart full of
yeah,
stuff.
maybe that would be more kind of what I'm talking about. Where, like the traders would come into town, but they wouldn't just like sell you a stove. They'd be your stove installer and fixing your other things while you're there. Like the thing about ancient times is there were people who were generally talented in a lot of things because they had to be. You know, the blacksmith wasn't just the blacksmith for weapons. He also made your jewelry. He also made your pots and pans and tools and like.
And his dad was probably a blacksmith. And his dad was probably a blacksmith.
Yeah, if I was to do that, I would have been miserable because my dad is a programmer now, but I think in ancient times he would definitely still be some sort of like mathematician or something like that, like some sort of like maybe like a librarian.
Maybe. It's harder. It's harder than you think to become educated or high society in that time because like a lot of people who had like ridiculously high IQs were still just forced into whatever their situation was.
If we're going by what I would have been forced into by family name, I would have been a potter.
Gotcha.
Because Heffelfinger means master potter.
You could have made me. My last name means jug. Jug. Kruger means jug.
I don't know what batch elder means.
It means there's a lot of you because your elders mixed a lot of batches.
I would say that we're more historians. There's a lot of us in the family that are big into like history and everything about like Fort Wayne, going back decades. And
back to the Kikiyanga era.
Well, my family specifically has been in Fort Wayne since about 30 to 50 years after Fort Wayne was founded.
So almost the Kikiyanga era.
We've been in
almost directly after it, actually.
We were also here like in the 1600s in Massachusetts. So like one of the first pilgrimages over.
Nice. Massachusetts, did they fight in the Revolutionary War?
I've had a family member on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side, in every single conflict in U.S. history.
Technically, you are
Revolutionary, Civil War, all.
Technically, you and your siblings are sons and daughters of the Revolution, and there's actually like societies and stuff you can get into that from being a direct descendant of someone who fought in the war.
And then when we were over in Europe, we're descended from Vikings too.
Beautiful.
My family's connection to the Revolutionary War was my great grandpa or whatever was a drummer boy in
was he in the Confederate Army?
No. Washington's contingent.
Okay, good.
In the Revolutionary.
We's about to have beef.
I don't know what my family was doing in the Civil War. I don't have that tracked down very well.
As long as it's Southern style.
Southern style beef?
Southern style chicken.
Southern food is amazing.
It is amazing. Y'all ever had breaded okra?
Oh.
Yeah, that shit's good. I do like breaded okra. Yeah, I don't know what my family was doing in the Civil War.
Y'all ever had breaded bread?
I mean, I've had a fried Oreo before, so
it's called a sandwich.
It's bread on bread on bread. Yeah.
I'm all bread. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I was to choose, which you didn't get to do a lot in ancient times, I would like
That's
to
what
be
I
a
said,
trader.
If you got to choose.
I'm probably a
if you got
trader
to
of some
choose,
kind.
okay.
Yeah. If you were set to your family name, Caleb, you would be a jug.
I would actually be a brewer. We have There's a Kruger brewery that we have a serving tray from, an antique one. I don't know if they still exist anywhere. Like if there's still a Kruger name out there making anything, but there was a Kruger name brewing.
Now,
for
is
a
that
while.
name German?
It is German, yeah.
Okay, I'm concerned.
No. Well, my family.
Am concerned.
All right, my none of them were blonde to begin with.
That's fair.
None of us have blue eyes.
Okay.
Mostly pastors.
That's not good.
No, that wasn't an issue there.
No, yes, it was.
Not
You would have been killed.
Well, yes, that's not good for us.
Not
but,
good for you.
That's good as far as being
for
on
your
the better
moral.
side of history.
Good
there.
for your moral set.
And my grandparents, my descendants moved here prior to either World War.
Oh, okay. So your family's been here a while.
Yeah.
I'm Swiss,
Right
so I'm
before
neutral.
Civil War. I got about 25% Swiss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do the DNA test to find out what all I am.
Oh yeah.
Because, like... I'm
I have
like
mine
the
tracked for the
general-
most part, actually.
I think I'm a general mutt across Europe. Because we came from England.
Uh huh.
But Batch Elder... Well, it was actually Batch
Well,
Elder.
England in the
Before-
1600s.
Before they got married.
No. Before they got over here. There was
Yeah.
Bachelor. There was no T and there was no D. And it was an O instead of an E.
Plus, England itself is pretty much a mutt of every other like culture that they've
Yeah,
been a
we-
part of for
we've
the
got a lot
last
of,
2,000 years.
Of no, I can't think of it.
Because it was
Scandinavian?
originally
Like
like
Scan-
England.
Scandinavian?
Scandinavian. That's what I was calling.
England was originally only Celtic, and then
And we have a lot of Celtic.
yeah, and then they got taken over by the Romans. That added some. Then they got
Don't
taken
get
over
me
by
started
the
on Margaret Thatcher. Continue.
Shit.
All right.
I don't actually have that, but there are very many strong
What was I going to
opinions
say?
on it.
Oh, crazy enough, I have most of my bloodline
Traced.
locked down. I'm mostly Icelandic and Swiss. In fact, I may be more Icelandic than Swiss because my mom's grandpa was full Icelandic, and he came over in the 40s.
I got you.
So,
Next question, or do you want me to answer
what?
the
What?
ancient times?
What? Yeah, go for your answer.
I think I'd either be a farmer, a trader, like you were talking about, to see the countryside, or a cartographer.
Cartographers would be on boats specifically at that point, right? For the most part.
Not necessarily.
I think there were plenty of land maps being made too. Would that technically
I
count?
didn't say what. time,
Yeah,
I
I
said
guess it
ancient
depends
times.
on what time period of ancient history. Because if we're talking about like,
I-
if we're talking like late medieval era, like 1415, you'd be most of that would be mapped out from where you would be going.
That's
Yeah.
true.
The thing
I could
you
do
would
the
probably
North America.
yeah, that's
cartographer.
the thing. Towards the late end of the medieval, you'd be looking into New World and the expansion into Asia. So okay, what's the next question?
Next question. What time? We're at 43 minutes. All right.
Yep.
If you were to start a business or start a new one, what would it be and why?
All right. You need to define for me what you mean by start a new one. If the first question is start a business, because he already has a business.
Yes,
Okay.
That's why I included that.
Focus One Photography on Instagram. Or
Caleb.
Focus One Production. Sorry,
He takes great nudes.
I do.
Oh, you look up. It's just
Very-
bowls
very-
of macaroni and spaghetti.
All noodles.
All right. Caleb, if you were to start a business, what would it be?
If I was to start a business,
Start a business. Something I would personally. What would you genuinely enjoy doing for a long period?
genuinely enjoy. I don't know. I've really been enjoying buying and selling Legos recently. so-
Honestly, you're not that far away from making a business out of that.
Like, it's good profit. Like, if I had more time and more capital, I could definitely
Space.
make a living
you
on
should
it.
Probably do that.
So, like, if I could just buy
Set
a
up-
little storefront, I'd like to make like a community style Lego store that's got,
you can have
uh,
like one storeroom off to the side where it's like
it's got like
the
a
kids can go and play. And do
yeah.
whatever
There's
they
like
want.
there's like a build and play area where you could build your own thing.
only
and
Duplo.
only Duplo.
Only
just so they
Duplo.
can't pocket them all.
Get a taste of it.
No, just get like your generic ones and
Well,
like
There'd be like build your own set tables, and they'd just pay by the pound. They'd build their own set and put it on the scale, and they'd be
Take it home.
cheap amount for that because it'd just be large quantities of used Legos, a big bin of minifigures, a display case with old Lego sets and old rare minifigures and stuff.
There's a place in Indianapolis that we should just go. Like, just some weekend we should just go. It's 5,000 square feet. They open up January 1st of next year. 5,000 square feet of just
nothing but Lego
Yes.
R2D2s.
Yes. Well, just Legos in general. But yeah, I feel that would be awesome. That's kind of what I'm thinking of when you say that, like a Lego store of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd like to be a little small community. Sometimes people come in and just play, and sometimes they buy stuff and run a lot of the profit off of like eBay and stuff. So it wouldn't necessarily be the only money. It would be traffic through the store.
Right. Do a lot of like secondhand sales and stuff like that. Maybe you could do like your own Brick Owl sort of situation.
Yeah, but I also get bored of stuff sometimes, so I don't know if I'd end up getting bored of it and want to do something else.
Probably.
You could always sell your business and start another
That's
one.
true.
Another thing on the ADHD is it is very like, I think people with ADHD are 35% more likely to be their own boss and like entrepreneur because they have that like they have a drive to continue to do things, and that when you think of a business, you're like, I want to do this one thing, but it actually ends up being you're also your own accountant and marketer and that sort of thing. So you end up having to get good at a very 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 many things. So
trying to think, I've bought and sold cars, skates, Legos.
I feel like you should be a pawn shop owner at this point.
I was gonna say like a swap shop owner or something like that
Airsoft.
would be good.
Pallets, lots of miscellaneous stuff off there. And as far as hobbies go, I think I've had quite a few as well that I didn't stick to. Speed skating, basketball.
You got into speed skating?
Yeah, I was
like roller
I was
skating?
speed skating for a while. I had a nice set of those big wheel bad boys.
Hell yeah. Are you talking the inlines?
The big wheel.
Speed skates
okay.
like this big
Like
around.
like the wheels are like the size
But
of like
inline or-
they're inline and they're like the size of like
Those
they're
speed
bigger
skates
than
are
Razor
side by
scooter.
That's not necessarily true.
When you say speed skating, you're always referring to inlines.
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen speed skates that are not.
I could be wrong.
'Cause
but-
my dad-
Unless they're double, like two big ones right directly next to each other.
Yeah.
It's so that you can like lean when you're.
I mean, you can skate really fast on quads, and there are quads that are meant for speed. But as far as the actual official sport of speed skating,
Oh, okay.
that's what we were talking about.
Okay, because I was going to say, because my dad goes skating all the time, and he talks about the speed skaters, and he doesn't do inline. He does quads.
I wonder. I mean, it's Olympic, and it's always in line for Olympic.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen it.
All right, Sam. We gotta keep
Yes.
moving. If you were to start a new business, what would it be?
What would I start as a new business right now? I would probably start a general maker shop, like an Etsy shop or something like that.
That'd be
like
pretty
making
sweet.
stuff.
Like something where people can bring their handmade crafts in to sell.
No. I would make handmade crafts.
But you could also possibly sell out other people's stuff to help fill out your store more.
If I was to open up a shop, I'm talking more like an
just an
online,
online
like
dealer.
an Etsy shop or something like that, where I'd probably make D&D stuff at this point,
That's what I'm-
like
that's
dice
what I-
towers and things. I'm realizing how like
Easy it is to make that stuff.
it's pretty simple. Yeah, it's not too hard. Also, like the profit margin on leatherwork is crazy. Like the only expensive part about leatherwork is the materials, but then you make like double, triple profit on it. So I've been looking into that lately, and I've wanted to get into it, but I haven't been able to afford it yet. So, but yeah, probably something along leatherwork, woodwork, making D&D stuff. I'd really like to be that guy, like those that leather company that you've been talking about lately.
Palmy River.
Yeah, that Maumee River. I really like what they're doing, where they go to like the Pioneer festivals and
They go to
Renaissance
Johnny Appleseed.
festivals and all that kind of stuff. That would be really, really cool. I
All
love
right.
that.
Quick correction: I'm seeing things advertised as speed skates that are quads.
Told you.
However, the ones I had were like that one in the middle there.
I've never seen that before, and that is absolutely fantastic. That looks dorky as shit.
Yeah.
But you go fast.
I bet
They're
you do.
very weird to
I
get
bet
used
you
to
do.
because they have no ankle support. They stop at like a sneaker, and most roller skates that you like roller blades that you'd get, they're like booted up like ski boots.
What a great way to break your ankles.
Yeah, you go fast as heck. Like when
Yeah.
people fall, they slide on their side from all the way from one end of the rink to the other and slam into the wall.
Considering my dad's been roller skating for years, and back when he lived in Colorado, he used to be able to hit like 50, 60 miles an hour going down a mountain on quads. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine how fast you could get going on
I can't
those.
imagine how many
You can get
bearings that
speedy.
man went through with those.
You know, you'd be surprised if you buy a good set of bearings, you really don't change them out as often as you think.
Oh, my sister played roller derby, so I watched
Yeah.
her change her bearings out all the time.
All- yeah.
Roller derby is
It's
way
more-
less smooth and way
That's
more
true.
aggressive stomp and
Yeah.
push. Like there's a lot more side push, I feel like, in roller
yeah,
derby.
I agree, but I'm saying if you're
Derby.
going 50 to 60 mile an hour down
Yeah,
a
yeah,
mountain,
yeah.
you're definitely going to wear through the bearings because they're not meant to go that fast,
Right.
especially on quads. Maybe speed skates may wear down less because they're meant for it, but
Well, like on my longboard, my bearings lasted for like 8 years. Not even kidding. They lasted a good long time.
Fair enough. I just watched my sister go through a whole shit. Like she had like
Well,
a tackle box full of bearings.
oh, I don't doubt that, but
Do you
like,
switch
yeah.
out just like Bones Reds all the time, or what'd you use?
My sister did.
Oh, okay.
But she did her. So like she had her main skate, and then she had like 3 or 4 different sets of wheels that she'd change out with different bearings for different reasons, for different
Point at your mic.
We need a
reasons, for different wheels. for
we need
different
a
bearings.
we need to go skating as a group sometime.
I'd be down.
I'd be down.
My dad would be mad if I don't invite him though.
You can invite him. That's fine.
We could
Okay.
all go down.
I'm gonna lap him though.
Oh,
This
I'd
is,
like to
this
see
is
you
a
try.
challenge, Mr. Heffelfinger.
I'd like to see you try.
Go.
Let's go.
Actually, it's been a long time since I've been skating, so we'll see.
I can't do backwards still. I've been skating my whole life and I can't.
I also don't own speed skates anymore,
This is.
but I do have a
unfortunate.
set of fairly fast street hockey skates I can use.
There you go.
I feel like if I were to start a business and to make it really fun,
Riley, point at your microphone.
I am.
Your microphone
Not
was
with your
pointed at
finger,
your neck.
Riley, with your mouth.
Riley, you don't talk through your neck.
I've been smoking for 35 years.
I remember when they invented chocolate.
takes the cigarette and puts it in the inhale. The hole in the neck. I'm sorry. Apologies to those who have that stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you made your own case.
Chocolate.
I would either do like what you're talking about, make my own like handcrafted stuff online business, in addition to, but also have a game store where you can come in and play board games and RPG games and do like VR and that kind of shit.
Have you guys been to the one in Huntington?
There's a couple in Fort Wayne like that.
Yeah, I know,
I
but the
have
one in
not.
Huntington is in the old library. It is
That's what you're
dope.
saying.
That's pretty sweet, actually.
It
That's
is
a great location
really cool.
for it.
Really cool. ECB Games, I think, is what it is.
It'd be cool to do it here in
I'm
Columbia City.
Almost, they have a coffee shop in the basement now, and I'm almost certain they have VR too.
Dope.
It's a pretty cool shop. I actually used to help a little bit here and there with the Spectrum VR place in Fort Wayne. That
Okay.
was
I feel like my brother helped at that VR place in Fort Wayne too.
really.
My older brother Matthew. Have you met Matthew?
I've played Warzone with him a handful of
We met
times.
him
Okay.
we met him when your mom and him came up to the garage when we were working on it.
Yes.
I don't remember.
I don't.
him.
I
Maybe
don't
he
think he
wasn't-
was
I
there
don't
for
think he
that
was there
one,
for that
but
part.
yeah, he helped out at a VR place for a while. They won a lot of tournaments there.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Does he know Brandon then? Brandon?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. He probably does. It depends on which one he did.
Were there multiple VR places in the at the time in Fort
There's
Wayne?
two. There were two locations at one time.
Two
There's-
locations for the same store.
Yeah, for Spectrum.
Do you know did a Nick work there? He was
That was the other one.
curly
on
hair,
Parnell.
young 20s.
Yeah, that was the one on Parnell.
He
not
was
the one-
one of my campers at Luther Haven.
Oh, really? That's funny. All right, Riley, give us one last question.
One last question: if given the opportunity, what decisions would you retry in your life?
This is such a deep question. I almost think we should skip this one till
Yeah.
the next podcast.
That's all the ones we had. That's all
Finishing
all the ones we had.
finishing culinary school, but I still don't think I would have gone into a career of it. I just would have liked to be able to say that I finished it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What would I retry? It's such a deep question.
One simple thing with no repercussions.
You don't got to explain it. You don't got to go in depth.
I
say
really wish that like I could have retried a lot of like the things that I was trying towards the end of high school, like gone more into performances. Like I was doing a lot of choir, a lot of drama and things like that, and I was very good at it then. I have lost all of that skill now, and I feel like it would be somewhat useful to this point in my life, like actually trying. Because like it's not incredibly difficult for a high school kid to get into like United Arts plays and things like that.
Yeah.
And I never got anything past like church competitions and things. I feel like I would have really enjoyed that and had a good time with it later in life. And I didn't take singing very seriously, and I can still sing, but not nearly as well as I used to be able to. I just feel like that would have been fun and led to some more, I like those really like weird career opportunities you never expect. And I would have liked a life that has a little bit less,
a little more flair to it.
yeah, a little more flair, like less working at stereotypical jobs and working more like gig economy stuff. So
That's cool. I feel like if I had to retry, I would say I would be more social.
as a kid,
In school.
yeah.
Because I lived like 10 minutes away from school, and everybody else lived right around school.
Mm-hmm.
No one else lived over by me in high school because I was in the bottom corner of the jurisdiction.
Right.
Like I should have went to Northside because it was closer,
My mom went to Northside.
but I went to Northrop instead.
Yeah.
And another thing, like along the lines of what you were saying, I think it'd be fun if I would have stuck with, because like when in high school I had technical theater, so I built the sets for the plays.
Oh yeah.
I
And they
think
always need people to do that.
I think it would be really, really fun to build like movie sets and like that kind of stuff.
Do you know about Townsend in Pearson?
Nope.
Townsend makes realistic props for specifically Renaissance, basically
Is that the one
up
with
to
the Giant Knight by 30.
No. That's a car shop, or it used to be. It's not anymore. No, they're downtown Pearson. They make props for things that are like 1700s, 1800s, even back to like medieval stuff, like barrels and costumes and all sorts of stuff. And they fund like they supply for movies a lot of times too. But they make like really, really great props. Like they make swords and all sorts of stuff. Like they supplied all of the barrels for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I think one
That's
through
a lot of barrels.
1 through 3.
That's a lot of barrels of rum.
That's a lot of barrels.
Because you got to think, they explode a lot of those
Uh huh.
barrels.
They sure do.
They float with a lot of those barrels.
And they need them made to spec to be able to make a pretty decent explosion too. Like they make them specifically to explode dramatically.
Like have actual shrapnel and such,
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, Townsend's pretty cool. They do tours, so we could do that too. That'd be really fun to
That'd be
fun
a
to do.
fun tour for maybe the group to go through.
Yep. We did that as a homeschool group when I was a kid.
Well, friends, it is it's
It's a little
57
it's a little
minutes.
early, but I think
About 2 minutes early.
Yeah, we can end it there. We'll try to have something a little more concrete for next week. Sorry about not doing the podcast
That's
last week.
concrete, baby.
We got kind of behind. We'll go ahead and do our outro. Anybody have any projects they want to shout out? Maybe like your Instagrams or anything for you two?
I don't have an online presence. Don't look for me.
At your meme is so fat.
It's like
We don't associate that with my actual person.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
On Warzone is Tickled Toaster.
On the notes of the people who were listening a couple episodes ago, when I was talking about getting that garage, I finally did obtain that.
Oh yeah, you
property.
did.
And me and Caleb and Jake moved a lot of my stuff in there yesterday before.
We sure
Oh,
did.
Saturday
nice.
That was fun. Plus, we got to move some of Caleb's stuff in there.
If we have time this week, I'd like to go see it.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Faux show. I don't have any school this week because it's Thanksgiving break this week.
Ooh, and I don't work. I don't work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So.
I need to get more stuff moved out of there and into.
Oh, you got more to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the 21st. We can. Are you working the Friday?
Friday? No.
I might not be. We could probably, if Jake's not doing anything,
I would guess Jake has Friday off too.
we might be able to move stuff you want to move up to your house, and then whatever left we can leave in my shop, or how
We might be able to do that. Yeah. I'm gonna try to get my garage organized a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit more after the podcast.
Yeah,
But
Because we're coming up right on an hour, and once
Yeah.
we're this far anyway, we should just end it in about 17 seconds.
we need to do our outro. We need to do a
17 seconds.
full outro.
15
All right.
seconds.
I swear to God.
Go fast.
do our
Go
ads,
fast.
do our
Okay,
ads. Go,
so
go, go, go.
you can find us on Instagram at ADHD Pizza Pod. You can also find us on Facebook by that same username. You can find us on YouTube at ADHD Podcast. And we want to thank our friend Josh and the guys at Printer Friendly for the use of their song Evergreen. That is our intro and outro.
Go check them out on Spotify.
Go check them out on Spotify. Seriously, that album slaps. It's awesome.
You forgot part of the outro.
What did I forget?
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet. I was going to do a special shout out. We have another buddy that does music, I Am QT. He's back to doing his music songs his song a day thing on his Instagram. If you check out I Am QT on Instagram, he's got them all there.
And then we got one guy who does music as in musicals because Steve Jobs is a Disney princess.
That's been
This is-
ADHD Pizza.
We'll see you later.
Adios.
Bye.